We talk a lot about stress and burnout at work. It feels like it's everywhere. But what if the problem isn't just about having too much on our plate or impossible deadlines? What if the real root of all that chronic stress is something deeper, something hidden in the very way our minds are wired to work? Let's get into it. Just think about it for a second. We're always told, manage your time better, take your breaks, do some mindfulness. And don't get me wrong, that's all great advice. But so often it feels like we're just putting a band-aid on the problem, right? We're just treating the symptoms. This question is what we're going to dig into today. What if the real cause isn't the pressure from the outside, but an internal fight that it kicks off on the inside? Okay, so before we get to that hidden cause, let's start with what we already know. There are officially recognized problems at work that go way beyond just physical safety. These are the hazards right there on the surface, the ones we can see and feel every day. The official name for these things is psychosocial hazards. And this definition, which comes from an international standard, is actually really powerful. It says it's not just about what you do, but how the work is set up, the people you work with, the whole environment. It's a huge deal because it acknowledges that our mental and psychological well-being is just as important as not getting physically hurt on the job. And the consequences are serious. This isn't just about feeling a little stressed. Exposure to these hazards can lead to a whole domino effect of real clinical health problems. We're talking burnout, anxiety, depression. It can even lead to things like sleep disorders and heart disease. This is the reality for so many people, and it's exactly why we need to understand what's really going on. All right, so now let's start peeling back the layers of the onion. To find that hidden cause of stress, we need a totally new way of looking at the mind. So forget thinking about the brain as just a computer that crunches data. Let's start thinking of it as a control system.
And this right here is the perfect analogy, a simple thermostat. Think about it. A thermostat doesn't control the blizzard happening outside. It only controls one thing, its perception of the room's temperature. It has a goal, a set point, say 70 degrees, and it acts, turning the heat on or off to make what it senses match that goal, no matter what the weather does. We do the exact same thing.
And this is the core idea behind something called Perceptual Control Theory, or PCT. And this part is key. We don't actually control our actions directly. Our actions are just the tools we use to make our experience of the world, our perceptions, match what we want them to be, like when you're driving a car. Your goal isn't turn the wheel. Your goal is to perceive the car as being safely in the middle of the lane. Turning the wheel is just what you do to maintain that perception. Now it gets even cooler. Our perceptions aren't just one big messy pile. They're organized in a hierarchy, from simple to complex. Way down at the bottom, we're controlling basic sensations, like the brightness of a light. But as you go up the levels, we control way more abstract things, like cause and effect relationships, making decisions. And then, at the very top, are our core principles, things like justice, fairness, or being a safe person. Remember this hierarchy, because it is the absolute key to understanding all of this. So let's connect the dots. If we're all just walking thermostats, constantly trying to control our perceptions based on goals at all these different levels, what happens when two of those really important high-level goals are in a head-to-head fight? Well, that's when we find the true source of chronic workplace distress. Let's take a really common example, especially for frontline workers. Imagine your manager is pushing for more output. That sets a high-level goal for you. I need to be seen as a productive worker. That goal tells you to do things that speed up the job, right? Maybe take a few shortcuts. But at the exact same time, you have this other really important high-level principle. I need to be a safe person. And that goal tells you to follow all the procedures to the letter, which of course slows you down. You can't do both. It's impossible. And that, right there, is what PCT calls conflict. It's when two of your big, important goals at the top are screaming opposite commands at the same systems down below. It's like trying to steer a car left and right at the exact same time. What happens? You get stuck. You're frozen. And that constant feeling of being stuck, of failing at two important things at once, that is the source of that deep, gnawing psychological distress. So here it is, the big reveal. The problem isn't the demanding boss or the dangerous machine on its own. Those are just things happening in the environment. The real problem, the actual engine of burnout and anxiety, is the unresolved internal conflict between your own goals that those outside things trigger. This changes everything, doesn't it? The problem isn't just out there, it's in here. Now,
I know that might sound a little bleak, but stick with me because here's the amazing part. Our minds actually have a built-in, natural way to solve these exact kinds of conflicts. It's a fundamental part of how we learn.
So if we're wired for control, and that can lead us into these impossible conflicts, we must be wired with a way out, right? Of course. The answer is yes. It's a process that happens all on its own, if we just let it. This built-in solution is called reorganization. And it's basically the mind's master learning program. When that internal conflict creates chronic distress, this system kicks on. It starts trying out tiny, random changes to the way your goals are structured, your beliefs, your perspectives. It's kind of like shaking up a snow globe until the pieces settle in a new way that just makes the conflict disappear, and the distress goes down. But, there's always a catch, isn't there? Reorganization works best on the things that are in the spotlight of our awareness. And where does our awareness usually go when we're stressed? We get tunnel vision. We get stuck on the feeling of being anxious or overwhelmed or angry. We chew on the distress itself, instead of looking up to see the two warring goals, like be productive versus be safe, that are actually causing the whole mess from a much higher level. So if the solution is getting our awareness to the source of the conflict, how on earth do we do that? Well, this brings us to the very heart of it all, a simple but really powerful conversational tool designed to do exactly that. It's called the Method of Levels, or MOL, and it's not therapy. It's not about giving advice or telling someone what to do. It's a very specific way of talking and listening that basically helps a person guide their own awareness up that ladder of perceptions we saw earlier, away from the symptom and up toward the cause. And at its core, it really boils down to two surprisingly simple steps. First, as a listener, you just stay genuinely curious about what the person is experiencing in that exact moment. Not the past, not the future, but what's going through their mind right now. And second, you listen for little shifts, what are called disruptions, a sudden pause, a nervous laugh, a change in their tone of voice. These are little clues that their awareness just bumped into something important. And by simply asking, what was that just then? You can help them jump their focus up to that higher level thought that just flickered by. I love this quote from Timothy Carey, one of the leading experts on this. It just nails the whole idea. It's not about fixing people. It's about creating the right environment for their own natural, built-in problem-solving system to kick in and do its thing. You're just helping them get a better view of the pickle they are in, and from that new vantage point, they can see their own way out. And that really brings us to the final thought here. Once you understand that distress comes from this internal conflict, and that people have this amazing natural ability to resolve it themselves, it kind of changes everything. It really makes you rethink what it means to be a supportive manager or colleague. So the next time someone on your team is struggling, maybe ask yourself, is my job to hand them the answer, or is it to help them discover their own? The difference could be absolutely profound.